welcome back to Elder Futhark Rune Divination 101. And today we will be discussing the second rune in the Elder Futhark, which is the rune known as Uruz, the rune of strength. Now, Uruz is the second rune in the first 8, and its pronunciation could be described as Uruz. So you basically take the two O's that you have in the word booze, like as in alcoholic drinks, beverages, and you place an R behind it, so like and then you have the word ooze, as in slime, as in it is associated with the letter U, like in the word under, the first letter of the word under. The associated gods of the Nordic and Germanic pantheons are Thor, Urdle, and sometimes also Odin as a shaman, because Odin has certain different aspects. The astrological sign related to Uruz is known to be Taurus. Taurus tend to be hardy, persistent, sometimes a bit stubborn people, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it is a trait that can be very, very handy in certain situations, and it perfectly reflects the overall vibe of this rune, pretty much, because Uruz being the rune of strength, it can be almost like a stubborn rune. It is raw power. It is can be interpreted in a way of bludgeoning your way through something, but it does not necessarily have to be that. Uruz is the rune of strength in all respects. It is determination. It is being strong-willed, which is something Taurus can also be very known for. It is keeping your mind firmly on the outcome of something, being somebody that is also very earthy, very, very grounded, and therefore it is no coincidence that the element that is associated with Uruz, that it happens to be earth, because with Uruz, we work from a place that is very much grounded. It is very much a rune of action. It is very much considered action. It is being very in touch with how things are in the physical, but also in the mental and in the spiritual. It is a power, a force that can never be truly mastered or dominated, but it is something that can be directed if you know what you're doing. So, Uruz means aurochs. Aurochs are a certain kind of ox that existed up until the 17th century in northern and western Europe, and also in Great Britain, I believe. They have been extinct in the 17th century, like I said, but I believe that I've read some things about Lithuanian and Russian zoologists having backbred them to reintroduce them as a species, which is pretty cool if you think about it. A species that has been extinct for 400 years has been brought back simply by backbreeding, so that's pretty awesome. So why was this rune named after this specific type of ox? Well, aurochs had a reputation, and once again have a reputation, I suppose, because they are back from extinction. They were very, very aggressive. They were very, very fearsome. I believe they stood to about 6 feet at the neck. Very, very powerful animals, basically. very tough to kill probably, especially back in the day because they didn't have rifles or whatever, you know. Because if you lived back in those days, the horns on aurochs would be very, very prized as a drinking horn, for example. You know, from which you drink your ale or meat or whatever. And felling one would have been a great feat, worthy of a great warrior or a great hunter. So, yeah, that's where the name comes from. Uruz, strength. The aurochs were related with strength, associated with strength. So, being the rune of strength, it is strength in, as I mentioned earlier, all respects. It represents strength of the mind, of the body, of the soul, of the emotional self, of you know, everything that makes up the self, basically. So you know, it also represents good physical health, and it can indeed be used in runic magic as a way of improving your own health. Furthermore, it represents manhood or womanhood, respectively, depending on the one that you're doing the divination for, or about, perhaps. It represents virility and potency for a male. It represents fertility for a female. You know, it represents courage, endurance, willpower, and one could even look at it as the raw, unharnessed power of the universe itself. It is basically, if you want to lump it all together, the raw, primal drive that each individual being has to carry out what it needs and wants to do, whether this be you know, gaining possessions, whether it be making love, whether it be you know, survival, eating, anything that you can think of that we instinctively do, that we instinctively long for. This is what it represents, and this is also a representation of the power we need to get it. So whereas Feigu, which we have discussed in the previous video, is actually the reward, Uruz is the power through which we attain it. So yeah, I think that sums it up nicely. It is also, however, as we will be seeing later on, a sort of a cautionary rune in some of its aspects, in some respects, to never, you know, assert your power over others, which harkens back to what I discussed in the previous video about every action having a reaction, all of us being tied together. You know, because if you dominate over somebody else, you are not using your strength to its full effect, because control, it stems from fear, and fear is always a negative emotion. It is a weakness in your being. So when one fears, one seeks to control, and when one has power but uses it to control, one uses their own power fearfully instead of fearlessly, which would be, you know, if you were to use your power fearlessly, you were to use it to help yourself, which, you know, it's perfectly fine to want to help yourself, to want to get ahead in the world. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. You know, but if you are going to actively screw over other people or dominate over them, it's not going to be beneficial to you in the long run. You know, so if you use your power selflessly, if you use it to get ahead yourself, but in so doing also help others to get ahead, which again also harkens back to Feigu and the sharing of the wealth that you have. You know, that is also found. That is also another you know, aspect found in this room, where we share. Everything needs to be shared because we are all connected. So, to use your power irresponsibly, in very simple terms, if you use it irresponsibly to rule over others, you are using, in essence, your own strength against yourself, because you are coming from a place of fear instead of coming from a place of love. We now come to the divination part of Uruz, of how one interprets it in upright, converse, and reverse, and how it can apply in certain aspects of the readings that you will be doing, and also a short little example of how one can expect to encounter Uruz in its different positions. So, upright Uruz, when one encounters it in divination, it means that one has power, strength of will, maybe even physical strength, mental strength, that you need, that you possess it to see yourself or the person that is being asked about, or perhaps that you are asking the question for. That this individual being referred to has the strength, the will, everything basically that they need to see the challenge that they are facing through to the end and come out successfully. Now, that does not necessarily mean that there will not be changes. That does not necessarily mean that this person will not suffer. That does not necessarily mean that this person will not be in pain because they have the strength. But it means that they will have the endurance, all these things that I just mentioned, to see the challenge through to the end. Now, how they use it, how they actually will be applying this power, is completely up to them. But when you have an upright Uruz in such a spread, you might think that because this is the way things are going now, that this person is going to be using their power sensibly, that this person is going to be applying their power in a proper way, in a proper, proper quantities, and using their qualities to assure a positive outcome. So it can also be interpreted as the challenge itself, and it can oftentimes bring about a certain change of direction in your life, usually for the better. I would say mostly because Uruz is upright, a very positive name, because it symbolizes strength, obviously. Because it connects very well with Fehu again, in the sense that Uruz is, in a sense, the predecessing power, as I mentioned earlier, that one needs to attain Fehu. So Uruz is the strength to get there. Fehu is the actual getting, or attaining, if you will. So, in a spiritual aspect, one can think of Uruz as, like I said earlier, not to dominate over others, to come from a place of love, of applying your strength, your will, the endurance for good. Even though perhaps other people may not see it that way right now, it is the inner strength, the inner power, the inner will, the inner knowing of doing something constructive, of doing something positive. It is not a rune of might makes right. It is not a rune of I am stronger than you, and therefore I am going to go all Darwin on you. It is not something that needs to be looked at from a Darwinistic perspective as survival of the fittest. It is the energy of creation. It is not destruction. It is power. It is what you need to do in order to benefit not only yourself but others. So when you truly harness the power of Uruz, you will not be doing so selfishly. It does not necessarily have to be entirely selflessly, because, as I said earlier, there is nothing wrong with wanting to get ahead, with wanting to get good things in life. We all want that, obviously. So, there's nothing wrong with using this power to gain things for yourself, as long as it is not something that is always on your mind and only on your mind. Again, sharing of the wealth, a gift for a gift, which is something you pretty much will be encountering in all the runes that we are going to be discussing. So, because all power that you have, whether it be financially, whether it be physically, whether it be mentally, in the position of spiritual leadership, whether it be because somebody is attracted to you, one needs to use these forms of quote-unquote power over others to beneficial effects. Always be just and be honest, be courageous in your conduct. Never use it to harm other people. That is basically the spiritual lesson we can learn from the rune Uruz in its upright form. Because at the end of the day, if you don't use it in that way, it will always come back to bite you in the backside. So, what is an example of how one can expect upright Uruz to show up? When one is, for example, asking about a promotion for a job, and this rune, it will show up as a challenge rune, for example. Like, this is the challenge that you need to overcome. Basically, what it means in order for you to get this promotion, to get your feru, in other words, one would need to harness the power of Uruz, in the sense that one may need to be more dedicated, that one may need to spend more time with their job, to put more energy, put more effort, put more will, put more enthusiasm into the attainment of a promotion or a raise or something. So if you really truly want that promotion, you will have to, if this rune shows up as a challenge, you will have to, apply this force in your life, in your business life specifically. So that is an example of how one can expect to have this rune show up. Basically, again, like I said, it represents the strength one needs to get the desired outcome. That brings me to Uruz in its Converse aspect for the divination. Basically, what that can mean is that there are hidden strengths that one needs to tap into, or that one needs to even realize, or perhaps even needs to unlock within themselves, because one may not even be aware that it is actually within them. And in this, it is also a cautionary rune when it is Converse. For it to make you realize that one needs to first tap into things. Some things need to change a little bit more before you can actually go after or attain your desired goal or outcome, or your feru, in other words. To make a hasty move in such a situation, when it shows up in a spread like this, would be very detrimental to not only you, but perhaps also other people involved with the situation. So it is a sort of a cautionary rune of patience and perseverance for all energies to align properly, in a sense, so that you or the person being asked about or for can realize their strength so that they can make the best of this particular situation or whatever it is that they are inquiring about. Spiritually speaking, you could say that, to give you an example, two friends are having an argument, and one of the friends wishes to talk it out with the other friend, but the other friend is upset because the friend that wishes to talk things out is very hot-headed. This individual may speak before they think. They may be quick to anger. They may be quick to argue. They may be quick to defend their own point of view. And this particular friend that has these negative traits, these traits that they need to work on, he wishes to talk things out with this friend. So you cast the runes for this person, and Converse Uruz shows up as a challenge. So basically, how you would interpret this would be, for example, that he would need to have some patience, that he would need to sit down and really realize what it is that he has done wrong, or that has caused the rift between the two friends. So this individual needs to really realize that their behavior is actually being detrimental to the friendship. And if one is going to mend the rift between the two, this individual first needs to calm down. They need to clear their mind. They need to realize this hidden strength within themselves of being a better listener, of being a more patient individual, of being a more or being a less judgmental character. So once this friend has done that, once he has realized his flaws, and once he has taken steps to improve that, and he has in his mind made the decision to, okay, I'm going to now sit down and listen to the other person and their side of the story, and I am going to talk it out. I'm not going to get angry, I'm not going to get impatient, I'm not going to immediately spew forth my own personal opinion. That is when you realize your own inner strength. That's when you realize your Uruz. That is the challenge that one overcomes. And that is also an indication that now is the time for this person to start acting on their desires. Because again, that is also a part of a Converse Uruz showing up. It can sometimes mean that the signs are, deceptive in a sense, that swift action is not going to be a good thing. So in the example of the friends, eventually this person goes to this friend, he actually applies the lessons that he has learned, and they will end up mending the rift between them, because now this friend has learned his lesson and the other friend appreciates this. So he took positive action, he changed his demeanor, and now the friendship can go on, perhaps even better than before, So that is how one could see Uruz work in the spiritual aspect, and it is also an example of how one can encounter Converse Uruz in a reading. So basically what we can learn from Uruz spiritually is that we all have the power within ourselves to improve ourselves, to gain strength in whatever form. We have within ourselves the capability to transform us for the better, that is. We have all these capabilities, all these qualities that we are capable of harnessing. And people often say, you know, like, I cannot help this circumstance and this and that. And, you know, that may be true to a certain extent, but what you do have power over is how you react to it. And in a way, that is kind of what I wanted to illustrate with the argument of the two friends. You know, because you may not at that point in time have the tools necessarily to immediately fix things, but you do have the tools at your disposal to improve yourself and the way that you handle the events that are coming your way. Okay, so lastly we come to how one would interpret Uruz in reverse when one is doing runic divination, and this rune shows up in reverse. So basically what this rune can mean in the upside down or reverse position is that one is failing to think clearly, one does not have a clear mind, one does not know what actions to take to improve the situation, or if one cannot improve the situation through their actions, how one can improve themselves in order to better deal with the situation, such as, for example, in my last example about how two friends were arguing and one of them decides that, okay, I need to work on myself in order for the situation to start improving itself, because I may actually be at the root of the problem here through my reactions or actions. So basically that is part of what reverse Uruz says. It is this failure to see the proper or correct path that one needs to take in order for you to utilize your strength effectively. And that said, it can also mean that one is using their own strength against oneself, or even that others are using their own strength against you. Because, you know, if you are, for example, a person that is quick to anger, or a person that is quick to run away from situations, you know, why don't you use all the energy and all the effort that you put into being angry, or that you are using to run away and stay away from the situation? Why don't you use it to solve the situation? Why don't you use it to, you know, rechannel all that energy that you put into the negative to gain something from it, to improve upon the situation, to enjoy it, to, you know, basically, this rune in this form says that you are just, it is a warning that you are not utilizing your strength, but that you are in fact wasting it on something, somehow, some way. You know, it is, it could also be a warning in that sense that others may actually be out to get you, that there may be threats to your person or to your position in a certain hierarchy or in a certain job position. It may be that somebody is being hostile to you without you even realizing it, and that they are using your own things against you. It may mean that, on a more positive note, that things that actually seem to be a threat may actually simply be opportunities in disguises, which, let's face it, everything is, because adversity is how we grow, as I mentioned before. You know, so that is, in a more physical sense, reverse Uruz can also mean a loss of health. You know, it can indicate an oncoming or ongoing illness. It can indicate that one's health is deteriorating or has already deteriorated through some circumstances. There are more runes that can be interpreted as having to do with health, but we will get to those. Basically, in a spiritual sense, one can interpret reverse Uruz as, not being spiritually strong. It can imply that one needs to work on themselves spiritually. It can imply that one needs to strengthen their own approach to life, their own outlook on life, that one needs to have more faith, if you will, that one needs to have a proper application of said faith. Because one thing I've always learned, both in my shamanic illness and in the stories about the Nordic and Germanic gods, and indeed about most other things that have to do with spirituality, is that one can never be passive, to get on your knees and pray and ask, oh dear God or gods, or dear universe, dear all that is, dear great spirit, whatever. You can't pray. I mean, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with asking. But basically, that is all that people oftentimes do. And, there is a saying that says, God helps those that help themselves. And in a way, I feel that Uruz reverse is a very powerful, a very powerful symbolism for all those people that get on their knees at night and pray and ask, oh, please God, can she or he, come back to me, and can I please have more money because I'm poor, But that is, in essence, a failure to think clearly, because your own reactions, your own, how you handle things. You can, of course, just sit there and hope that things will come into your life just like that. But at the end of the day, if you want something, it is up to you to get up and get it. Because, you cannot expect things to magically just solve themselves. You're going to have to apply some sort of clear thinking, some well thought out stratagem, some strategy, some well thought out plan, and then execute that plan in order for you to gain what it is that you desire, in order for you to effectively harness your own inner strength, in order for you to get where you wish or need or want to be. And those people that get on their knees at night and pray and then expect things to miraculously appear, it is good to have faith. It is fantastic to have faith, but again, a gift for a gift, a principle that is so reoccurring in everything that we do, when one just lays down and expects things to happen to them. It is up to you to accept certain things that are offered to you, and to then take that thing and then run with it. Because if you don't do that, and you pray at night and, oh, please make this happen, or make this go away, what is the universe going to do? It's going to tell you, you know what, I gave you these opportunities. I gave you these things for you to hold on to or to seize upon, but you didn't do it. Because you expected some sort of miracle, while what was happening was that these opportunities that presented themselves were actually our answer, or my answer, the universe's answer to your prayers. But it is again up to you to actively engage these things and use them to your own advantage. So. This is basically also a way of illustrating that, having blind faith is in a way, not thinking clearly. It is our own passiveness sometimes, or our misdirected energy that is the cause of many trouble, many ill fortunes that have befallen all people. So, in this I find the runes a very, very, very strong blessing in my life, because they actually can show so many things about so many events, about people, what it is that they're feeling, what it is that they're doing, the reasons behind their words, their actions, and one can anticipate what one needs to do, or what one should not do in some cases, in order for you to get your desired outcome. And sometimes the runes are very harsh. When I was asking about, for example, how can I improve a certain situation that had to do with my own, my own mood, my own perception about something. Basically, what I got was a reverse Tiwas, and basically that is the warrior's rune. And getting it in reverse can indicate, cowardice, for example. And it was basically telling me that I needed to become more brave in order for me to be at peace with the situation, to have faith that everything would work out, and that I had already taken the necessary steps in order for me to gain my desired outcome, but that all I needed to do was sit there and wait, because I had already taken that action. But I was, being detrimental to my own self, because I did not have the insight to say that I have already given the pushes, the little nudges that the situation needed, and that I was now wasting my own energy, that I was being a coward by constantly seeking reassurance, that I constantly needed to be told, oh, it's going to be okay, instead of just having faith in the actions that I took, and that I was being guided to take in order for me to get what it is that I want. So, that is something to keep in mind when you see reverse Uruz show up. It is a warning that you need to alter and change your thinking, your actions, that you need to redirect your energy, your own inner strength. Lastly, I'm going to give you a short little example of how reverse Uruz might show up. Basically, I was angry at somebody, and I was inquiring about what course to take. And this rune, it showed up as the issue rune in my spread. And in this, it was basically showing me that by being angry at this person in question, I was, simply wasting my energy. I actually mentioned this example earlier in the previous video, I believe, but it was, it is also a very, very good one to illustrate the point of this move. I was wasting my energy, and I was spending it on things that I had absolutely no control over, because something that other people do to me, I have no control over that. I only have control over how I react to it, how I let other people affect me, how I let their actions, their energies affect me. The runes were basically saying that I could spend my energy, my efforts on so much better things than just being angry at this person, because it just wasn't productive. It just wasn't making me happy, obviously. So for this, even if it was just for the sake of my own sanity and mental health, I decided that I would just forgive them, and that I would move along, and instead of remaining angry. So since then, I have actually felt a lot better, obviously, and I no longer felt so drained, because I was no longer spending my energy on negativity, and I was now instead putting it towards positivity. I felt better about both myself and the individual in question. And in return, this individual eventually came back to me and said, sorry that I acted this way. So, that is, that's for example, a little example of how one can expect a room like this to show up in this position. It always is a sort of warning to see a reverse Uruz, in that you need to change your thinking, need to change your energy expenditure, that sort of thing. So I guess this concludes my second video on the rune Uruz, the rune of strength. I once again hope that you found it informative, that it gave you something to think about. I hope that it was helpful to you. And again, let me please reiterate that the runes, while they have certain fixed meanings, they can mean so much more than the basics of what I discussed in this video. So, it is up to you and your intuition and your own research and your own meditation on the runes about what exactly they mean to you. And because, I'm just giving basic examples of what they mean to me here and how I learned to use them. But, your own journey may take you different routes. That is perfectly okay. In fact, I would encourage you to draw your own conclusions on what they mean to you, about their interpretation in your personal life, on your own spirituality, on your own your day-to-day life. So with that said, I hope you all have a great day. I hope you're surviving the Mercury retrograde a bit better than I am, because as you can possibly tell, I am feeling a little bit drained right now. I don't know what it is. I just think it's the Mercury retrograde or something. But I hope you have a great week. And next week we will be discussing the third and fourth rune of the Elder Futhark, respectively, which is ferocious and Untitled, the rune of chaos and Odin's rune, which is going to be hopefully very fascinating for you all. I know it will be for me, because I'm even learning about the runes as I am talking to you guys about it, and I'm actually learning as much from this as you hopefully are. So thank you so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment with questions, suggestions, that sort of thing. Because I really do enjoy and love making these videos, and I hope for some encouraging feedback and positive responses. And if you have constructive criticism, like I think you could do this or that a little bit better, or maybe you could montage your videos in a little different way, and such and such, I welcome all constructive criticism and compliments, and basically, thank you so much for all your good vibes so far, and for your positive encouragement and all. So I hope you have a great day. Elder.